Welcome to our Devos, where we are talking about the future being as bright as your faith. Sometimes when we look at our future and when we think about the days ahead, we get nervous. In fact, we get discouraged. And the reason why is because we're not exercising the faith, the same faith that we had to believe that Jesus died for our sins, the same faith that we have to believe that Jesus is faithful in us to take us to heaven, even though we don't go there. That faith we don't exercise on a day-to-day basis. Now, there's a million reasons why that may be. One of which, and not the least of which, is because right now we're in a dark place. Things have gone wrong. You right now are struggling. You don't know how to look up because all you're trying to do is maintain and not lose your mind. The idea of hoping for your future and thinking about what life is going to be like in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years is so unbelievably painful to you that when we talk about your future being as bright as your faith, you're like, that's not for me though, that's for somebody else. I want to encourage you a promise that you can accept in faith as you look at your future. And here it is. God doesn't go when things go wrong. God doesn't go when things go wrong. You might think so. You might be like, God left me. I'm alone. Right now, there's nobody here. That is a lie from the enemy. It is not biblical. It's theologically incorrect. And you may not be experiencing God the way that you think you should. But I promise you, His presence is just as near as it's always been. A perfect illustration of this would be in the Old Testament character Joseph. Joseph, out of everybody in the Old Testament, maybe David's a little close to this, Joseph is the one that I love studying the most. You know why? Because his life was filled with so much heartache and calamity. And God ends up working it all out for his good in the end. Now, here's a quick sum of Joseph's story. Joseph was the favored of his father's children. And the other children knew it. Because they knew it, they devised a plan to sell him into slavery. They wanted to kill him, but they didn't want to have blood on their hands. They sold him into slavery. They allowed him to go through this. They allowed their father, Jacob, to believe that Joseph had been taken and murdered. And Joseph goes from slavery to being falsely accused of rape and thrown into prison, to finally being in prison for a long time, the king's prison, which was the worst kind of prison. And he inevitably is recognized for his leadership giftedness and his supernatural ability, that he is put in position as essentially the prime minister of Egypt and is allowed to administrate over a very, very desperate and difficult time in Egyptian economy with regard to their food and the supply of the people that need and depend on the livestock and the food to live. Joseph is used by God to save many, many people. Now, I said this about the Christmas story previously. Joseph's life is awesome to read and study because we don't have to live it. But Joseph lived a life full of undeniable and irreversible heartache. But there's a passage that talks about how Joseph made it through. And if you read Genesis chapter 33 all the way through Genesis 50, you're going to see just how much God worked in Joseph's life. But the New Testament sums it up really well. In Acts chapter 7, verses 9 and 10, it says, the patriarchs, jealous of Joseph, these are his brothers, sold him to Egypt. But God was with him and rescued him out of all of his afflictions and gave him favor and wisdom before Pharaoh, the king of Egypt, who made him ruler over Egypt and over all of his household. Listen, God was with him. In his story, you're going to find that God gave Joseph favor. Joseph found favor with God. That's all throughout. Now, I want to let you know, believe it or not, okay? This is a spoiler alert, and you're not going to believe it. When you look at Joseph's life and you're like, I'm not the prime minister of Egypt. I'm not able to do the things he was able to do. I don't have this supernatural thing. You're right. You have more. You have more of God's favor than Joseph ever did. You're more highly favored than Joseph was. Why? The reason is simple, because you have the Spirit of the living God dwelling within you. Jesus died. God died for you, okay? And even though things have gone wrong in your life, you still have the value of God's precious life in you. So when you think about your life being over, When you think about you going through a bad patch where things aren't going well, I want you to imagine that you have a light inside you that cannot be dimmed. And faith is what unlocks your ability to see the future beyond the present pain. Faith is what gives you the stamina and the audacity to claim that God is not done working in your life and that he's willing to do more than he started with. So, today, recognize your future is as bright as your faith and say, I might have been in a situation where things have gone wrong, but God has not gone with them. Therefore, I believe that the best is yet to come.